My next guest is David Kirchhoff. He is the president and chief executive of Weight Watchers International. His billion-dollar company has capitalized on new health focus, and he joins us now to talk about it. David, good to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for
this
having me.
focus on health and healthy eating, I mean, it's not new, but it seems to have intensified recently because of people's understanding of obesity being linked to so many medical problems such as diabetes.
Yeah, I mean, if you take diabetes alone, I mean, as you rightfully pointed out, healthcare costs today related to obesity is about 9% of all healthcare expenditures. But frankly, if you look at diabetes by itself, it's roughly 1 out of 10 Americans has diabetes. Today, it's about
1 out of 10 have diabetes.
Adults. It's about a $170, $180 billion a year condition. The latest CDC estimates have, by the year 2050, 1 out of every 3 Americans with diabetes. So if you take simply diabetes and cardiovascular disease as two key chronic conditions and you continue to extrapolate the current pace, it's going to create a major problem for the healthcare system in general and Medicare in specific.
Is this the curse of wealth, or is it just the curse of having too much food too readily available without any kind of control mechanism or routine to make sure that we're eating the right kinds of foods in the right quantities?
All the above. You know, it is true that chronic disease tends to be sort of the evil sibling of affluence. And in particular, you know, the environment around us changed so rapidly in terms of food availability, proliferation of new food products, proliferation of dining out options.
Inexpensive food, as you describe it?
Yes, right? Yeah, particularly in processed food is less expensive. And the price of processed food generally has gone up a lot less over the past 20 years. And if you work it out, Americans on balance are consuming about, you know, give or take 250 to 300 calories more today than, say, 20, 25 years ago. And that's really all it takes to result in the rapid escalation of obesity. And so part of it's the environment, and a lot of it has to do with us just not knowing how to respond to our environment.
Now, what has the government done? Because they have issued some new guidelines for healthy eating and the types of foods. Many of us grew up with the food pyramid. What have they done to sort of accommodate themselves to this new reality that you're describing?
Well, you know, the government is required by law every 5 years to put out new dietary guidelines. You know, I think they did a good job this year in really trying to take a step to simplify the dietary guidelines, come up with some good common sense recommendations, and really try to get people to focus on fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains, low-fat dairy. And they tried to come up with language that really simplified it, and really for the first time, they connected it very directly to obesity to try to create a greater sense of urgency.
And they also did it with new labeling, too, in certain cases.
I think the new labeling is likely to follow. You know, there's other parts of labeling. For example, in the Affordable Care Act, one of the provisions is to now require restaurant chains to post nutrition information on menu boards.
And list the calories for each of the items that you might purchase. Yeah. All right. We're talking about medicine, talking about money. The idea being that if people make healthier choices about the kinds of foods they eat, that is going to mean lower cost for medical procedures. They might even not have to have any kind of medical illness that would require any kind of spending. Is there any connection that you've seen that people are now taking that kind of information to heart and making those kinds of difficult decisions?
I did.
You did?
I did.
What happened to you? What was your...
Well, I was, you know, 10 years ago, I had high cholesterol, high blood pressure. I weighed about, give or take, 40 pounds more than I do now. Through Weight Watchers, I lost 30. I'm now what they call a lifetime member, and I have normal cholesterol, normal blood pressure. So, I mean, to me, it's very personal, and I meet literally hundreds and thousands of members, and we have many more than that who have achieved amazing things through Weight Watchers by learning how to adopt a healthier life.
How can they do that in addition to just changing what they order in a restaurant or what they buy in the supermarket? Because it's more than just the food. It's about a change in lifestyle, a change in attitude. How can they maintain that discipline and be motivated?
You know, it's interesting. I would almost argue it's not discipline, it's developing new habits. And so when people come, for example, to Weight Watchers, really what they're coming for is to learn, but also to begin the process of learning how to establish healthier habits in their life, like eating a good breakfast, like making better choices where you're satisfied. I mean, you know, I'm a member, but I don't feel like I live a life of deprivation. And this is the trick for so many of our members. It is an education and behavior change process, but that's how they make it work. And then you add on top of that exercise, and the next thing you know, you're living in a completely different way. But it's very natural, but it also takes time.
Well, one of your more popular members right now, and certainly one of your more high profile, Jennifer Hudson, she's gone on the Weight Watchers program, but it's about maintaining the weight, I believe.
Well, she lost and is now maintaining. So Jennifer tracks points. Her weapon of choice is her iPhone. That she uses her iPhone. We've got an application that allows you to fully keep track of your program. And so she tracks her points in her iPhone. And she, you know, it's interesting. I saw her on Leno just a few weeks ago, and she was describing how she cooks, and that she bakes sweet potatoes and she bakes, you know, chicken, and sort of the way she was talking. My reaction was, oh my gosh, she's a Weight Watchers person. I mean, you could just tell by the way she talks. And that's the change you see, is that all of a sudden people are able to find that way of living in a completely different way, but in a way that feels very natural and very fulfilling.
How can they find a support group or some kind of camaraderie amongst fellow Weight Watchers when so much of the popular culture is pushing food that, as you were talking during the break, one muffin can be a quarter of the 2,000 calories that are suggested to just maintain your weight on a daily basis?
That's the entire reason why Weight Watchers even exist. I mean, the meetings and the support that's provided in meetings, and being able to be around people that are going through exactly the same thing, who get it, who know, who understand, who have 1,000 tips, is why this business is almost 50 years old and thriving. Because that's the place where you can go to get charged up, to get stronger, to get empowered, and take control.
What about the cost of meals that are designed to help you either lose weight or maintain your weight? Is it okay to kind of rationalize the cost and say, look, it may cost a little bit more right now, but in the end, it's going to cost me a lot less because I'm not going to be in the doctor's office?
You know, you'd be surprised that you can eat a lot more healthily, even on a budget. I'll give you an example. It's true that vegetables are relatively expensive compared to, say, I don't know, cornflakes. But what's also true is that frozen vegetables are a lot less expensive than fresh vegetables, and they're just as good for you. So there are 100 ways of basically living in a healthy way in a budget. And this is, again, what people are learning when they come to Weight Watchers.
Now, I got to say, this is not just an American situation. This is now global.
It is.
Where are you seeing the most growth in Weight Watchers now?
Well, you know, across the board, particularly we launched a new program in the U.S. and the U.K. and Australia, and as we reported our fourth quarter earnings, that's where a lot of our growth was happening. But, you know, for example, if you had told me 10 years ago that China was going to have a rapidly increasing obesity problem, I would have thought that was crazy. Yet, in fact, with their rise in affluence comes obesity, comes diabetes, comes healthcare cost.
We've got to leave it there. David Kirchhoff, thank you very much. Chief Executive, Weight Watchers International. Appreciate your insights.